All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into a case that really left a scar on Oklahoma history. The 1977 Girl Scout murders at Camp Scott.
It's a truly harrowing case. We've gathered sources on the crime itself, the investigation, the trial that followed, and all the scientific work done years later.
Yeah, our aim here is to sort of walk through what happened and try to understand why this awful tragedy is, well, still officially considered unsolved today.
And when you look into it, one of the first things that jumps out is the location of tent number 7. It was kind of tucked away, wasn't it? Near the showers, separate from the main counselor area.
Exactly. That detail becomes so significant later. It was June 12, 1977. 3 young girls. Lori Lee Farmer, she was 8, Michelle Heather Guse, 9, and Doris Denise Milner, who was 10, sharing that tent. First night of camp.
Just kids excited for camp. But the next morning, June 13th, they were found.
Their bodies were discovered, maybe 150 yards away, close to those showers you mentioned. And the violence was just extreme. Bludgeoned, sexually assaulted, strangled.
And that detail about one of the victims, Doris Denise Milner, her hands being taped, it's just haunting.
Investigators did find some things right away. There was a flashlight near the bodies, but the fingerprint on it was too smudged. No good.
Right. But inside the tent, they found a bloody footprint, size 9.5. That became pretty crucial.
And later, some items stolen from the camp turned up in a cave nearby. It was called the Cellar Cave. The Camp Scott, was evacuated immediately. It never reopened after that.
Which brings us to the warnings. Signs that were missed. It's unbelievable, but less than 2 months earlier, someone found a handwritten note.
Right at the camp, threatening to, quote, kill 3 girls in tent 1.
And it was just thrown away, dismissed as a prank.
Incredible. And there were other things too, weren't there? Sources mentioned tents being slashed before the murders, maybe some hatchets missing, little things that seem much bigger now.
Yeah, small flags that, looking back, look like warnings. And all this quickly pointed towards a prime suspect, Jean Leroy Hart.
He was local and a fugitive. Escaped from jail back in 73. He'd been serving time for kidnapping, rape, serious offenses.
And his past crimes. Some details apparently had disturbing similarities to the Camp Scott murders. Plus, he knew that area inside out.
Knew it well, including that cellar cave where the stolen stuff was found. Finding him took almost a year. A huge manhunt.
So that sets the stage for the trial. March 1979. The prosecution's case really leaned on Hart's connection to the area, the evidence from the cave, and hair evidence.
Hair evidence found on one of the victims, which they argued linked directly to Hart. The sheriff at the time seemed absolutely certain it was him.
But the defense pushed back hard. They highlighted major inconsistencies. That flashlight print wasn't Hart's.
And the footprint. The bloody footprint in the tent was size 9.5. Hart wore size 11.5. That's a big difference.
A huge difference. They also went after the credibility of one of the investigators, raised some serious questions there.
And clearly it worked, the jury. They must have had reasonable doubt.
Definitely. The verdict was not guilty, on all counts. There was a comment from a juror later, suggesting they thought maybe more than one person was involved.
Which is just, wow, a really stunning outcome. Hart, though, he didn't walk free. He was still serving time for his previous convictions.
Right. And then, just shortly after the trial, June 1979, he died in prison, heart attack. So, with the acquittal and his death, the case remained officially unsolved.
But science kept going, didn't it? DNA testing entered the picture.
It did. They tried in 1989, but the tech wasn't quite there. The results were inconclusive. Tried again around 2008 on some degraded samples. Still no definitive answer.
But then, much more recently, 2019, funding came through for advanced testing.
Exactly. And those results, released in 2022, were significant. They strongly indicated Jean Leroy Hart was involved.
To the point where the current sheriff is now convinced Hart did it and acted alone, saying all the identifiable DNA profiles belonged to either the victims or to Hart.
So you have this really stark contrast, right? Modern science pointing strongly at Hart's guilt.
But legally, he was acquitted. And because of double jeopardy laws, even if he were alive, he couldn't be tried again for the same crime. The acquittal stands.
That scientific finding doesn't change the legal reality from 1979. It's a strange kind of limbo.
And that lack of legal closure? It's had a huge impact on the victims' families. Cherie Farmer, Lori's mom, Richard Goose, Michelle's dad, they became incredible advocates.
They really did. Helped start Parents of Murdered Children chapters, campaign for things like Marsy's Law, which expands victims' rights.
They were key in getting victims' rights laws and a compensation board set up in Oklahoma. They said, closure won't be part of our lives. Their focus shifted to helping others, making change.
It's incredibly powerful, and the impact went further too. Camp Scott stayed closed, as we said. There was a civil suit against the Girl Scouts, though the council won that case.
Right. Different standard of proof in civil cases. But the tragedy definitely pushed organizations, like the American Camping Association, to seriously improve safety standards at camps across the country.
Yeah, major changes came out of this. And the case itself, it still fascinates people. Books, documentaries, and there's that recent McGirt Supreme Court ruling, too.
The one about tribal jurisdiction in Oklahoma. That's led the Cherokee Nation to re-examine parts of the case, since the crime occurred on land within their historical reservation boundaries.
So it adds another layer to an already complex situation.
So yeah, the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. Officially unsolved, even with DNA strongly pointing to Jean Leroy Hart decades later. It's that gap, isn't it, between the 1979 verdict and the 2022 science?
That's why it sticks with people. No final, legal answer. We remember Lori Lee Farmer, Michelle Heather Goose, and Doris Denise Milner.
3 little girls. It really makes you think, doesn't it? What does justice even mean here? The main suspect acquitted, now deceased. Can there ever be real, definitive closure in a case like this? Something for you, the listener, to consider.